Hi, this is Chuck Gardner. This is a photo tutorial. I want to talk about lighting and contrast. I've picked this afternoon to do this start of this video because the sun is at a afternoon 45-degree angle, and I'm putting it behind my back to create backlight. Now, in order to get sufficient lighting on the front for this video, since I don't have any video lights, I'm using two big square reflectors, 3x3 reflectors on either side, which is giving me flat fill. Now, the advantage of still photography is you can use electronic flash, which is much more manageable. And I'm going to show you the flash equipment I use, and then I'm going to bring it out tonight when there's absolutely no ambient light and show you what the flash can do to create fill and 3D modeling with an off-camera, off-axis key light. I did photojournalism in college with a pair of Nikon Fs, and I had one little dinky flash that I used. I also had a Nikonus 2 underwater camera that had a tethered flash cube flash gun on it. Now, I decided to drop out of college in 1972 and try professional photography and moved to Washington, D.C. And I was very fortunate to find a job as an apprentice with Monte Zucker, who put an ad in the Washington Post for a photographic apprentice just months after I arrived. So I became his full-time assistant. Monte had revolutionized wedding photography when they switched from black and white to color by using a dual flash, a very clever dual flash system, where we always had a flash on a bracket over the camera, so that when you were at eye level with the camera, the flash head, we used a direct flash back then, the flash head was over the heads of the subjects, so the head shadow would fall behind the shoulders, so you never saw the shadow. Then to recreate the 3D modeling, what we would do is we would use an identical flash on a stand. Now, he could not find a suitable rolling light stand, so what he cleverly did is he found a medical IV stand, and the ones we used had 4 legs and a heavy metal base. These I find in thrift shops. They're made by Johnson & Johnson or some medical supply company, and they have the name Pitchett Senior. And the reason they have the name Pitchett Senior is because they're designed to be used as medical waste. Now, back in 1972, the flash equipment was very primitive. It was actually made by Graflex, the company that made the 4x5 speed graphic cameras. And it consisted of a round reflector with a flash tube in it that was single power, and it had a battery pack that was the size of a riding lawnmower battery. And it was actually a stack of dry cell batteries that produced 410 volts of DC power. A very powerful unit. So we would carry that with a strap on our shoulders and a tether onto the flash, and then we would have an identical battery packed on our off-camera flash. And we would just roll this around on the dance floor while we were photographing. Monte never showed proofs. He only showed finished, custom, dodged, and burned prints. That was one of his secrets to the marketing that made his work so much better than anyone else's. Most photographers who were shooting weddings in those days, they would just shoot the film, show the customers the proofs right out of camera. They would select the proofs, and then they would just make enlargements from that without any custom dodging and burning. Well, what Monte did is he had his color lab, Mizell in Dallas, Texas, do the same type of dodging and burning that Ansel Adams did on his prints and what he used to do when he did his own black and white development. So it was an innovative process, but the real genius was the lighting, because by having this fill source over the camera, you are able to get shadow detail in all the black suits of the grooms. And then what you do is add the key light over the fill at a 45-degree angle to the subject's nose, and that will produce realistic 3D modeling and expose the highlights correctly. So it was fill for the shadows and then use key light for the highlights. Now, when I started using Canon flash, this is my original Canon flash that I bought in 2004, and this is my 50D camera, my old DSLR. It connects the flash, the master flash, to the hot shoe with this TTL cord. This acts as a sending unit for this flash unit here. This happens to be a Godox, so they don't match, but this was the master, that was the slave. And in order to get the lighting ratio right with 2 manual flashes, he had a clever adaptation of the inverse square law. He understood from the old school technique of tying a string with knots in it to your light, is if you take a string and tie it to your light with a knot at 4 feet, 5.6 feet, 8 feet, 11 feet, 16, 22, 32, 45, every one of those knot increments is a 1-stop difference in light. So if we were shooting a wedding, our baseline shooting was from 8 feet away. At 8 feet away, we had an f-stop of f11. That was a full-length shot. Now, from 11 feet, if we stepped up and went to 8 feet, that would mean that there would be a one-stop change in the fill exposure, the exposure of the shadows. So what we would do is then just stop the lens down 1 stop. The Rolleiflex cameras we were using at the time had 1-stop click increments, so you didn't have to look. You just reached down to the aperture dial and click 1 stop. Perfect exposure. Now, when you add the second flash to create the modeling, with trial and error, a little bit of testing, he determined that to get a full range color print, this off-camera flash had to be 1 f-stop brighter, a 2-to-1 incident key to fill ratio. Now, using that same clever inverse square f-stop equal distance technique, if we were shooting at 11 feet and we needed this light to be 1 stop brighter, it would go 8 feet away from the nose of the subject. Boom, perfect exposure of the shadows and the highlights. The groom's suit had detail, all the detail in the beadwork of the bride's white dress. It was amazing how simple it was. Move in from 11 feet to 8 feet, well then this still has to be 1 stop brighter, so you move that from 8 feet to 5.6, stop down 1 stop from f8 to f11, and again, you get perfect exposure. So with only 4 different exposure combinations, distance and aperture and the distance of the off-camera light, we were able to get perfect exposure and modeling of lighting on faces that look like a Hollywood movie sound set for every shot we took at the ceremony, reenacting the ceremony and the wedding receptions. And that was his claim to fame as a wedding photographer, and what I learned from him the first week I was working for him. And it was so bloody simple because he had created a very simple follow system. And the biggest takeaway from that which was something I already realized from working with the Ansel Adams system, was that photography is much simpler if you work systematically from some sort of constant baseline. So that is sort of the takeaway lesson. So this is the introduction. Part 2 of this is going to be the actual demonstration of the flash, which I need to do when it's dark out. And then I will follow up with a demonstration of how to use flash in a situation like this. I just don't have the room to set it up here. So again, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for part 2.